John Anik and Kenny Florian podcast. John Anik and Kenny Florian.
I f***ing love them. I can't get enough of them.
Let's hear that Boston next.
Big jab there from Duffy, and Frank Mir is hurt now. Down goes Duffy, out cold. Frank Mir does it again. Rock'em sock'em robots here. Oh my goodness.
Hyperbole. There are a couple of absolutely self-involved bullshit artists.
Here are your hosts, John Anik and Kenny Florian.
Headshot, bang.
Oh, quick turn. Ken Flo during this PFL offseason's got all the time in the world for us. Welcome in Wednesday, January 24th, 2024. It is episode 462 of the Anik and Florian podcast. Jason Anik in studio with me today. Ken Flo live in Charlotte, North Carolina. Dare you to try to break into his house. But joining us off the top of the show today is the top-ranked UFC welterweight contender, our dear friend, Belal. Remember the name, Muhammad. Braving the cold in Chicago, Illinois. So we were saying during our little pre-interview there, you can't drive Teslas in the cold, Belal. What's going on?
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm like, it was going around that Teslas in Chicago were going, like, you lose like 50% of your power because it's so cold out here. And then all the turbochargers, they all like got damaged. So then there was like 50 Tesla cars in front of turbochargers all like shut down. So like you had to get your car towed. And a lot of them were happening in the hood. So like people would leave their car there for the next day. The next day you go there and the car is like broken into, smashed. It was crazy for the last week. It was terrible.
Well, it was great to see you in Toronto. You were one of the few people, I think, who was not complaining about the cold. A lot of things we want to get into with you today. But you have been omnipresent at UFC live events, right? You and Jason have been doing Remember the Show and doing work for UFC Fight Pass. And I'm not sure you're going to answer this question with complete veracity, but Dominic Cruz said to me, once I started traveling with Jay, that I was going to get annoyed by him and progressively more sick of him. And I said, he's my twin brother, like that's not going to happen. But lo and behold, Cruz was right. So to what extent are you also sick of Jason at this point in time?
Dude, I want to go more with her. I'm like falling in love with her. Like, man, I want to be a part of the family now. That's my brother right there.
Well, you're definitely family. And I know a lot of us were very surprised, or not surprised, I should say, but very excited when we were there in Toronto to see Dana White do some media on Friday. And he did say, at least insinuated, that he was going to announce the date for your title fight against Leon Rocky Edwards at some point this week. So we are sitting here on Wednesday morning. I'd imagine that crossed your beak while you were in Toronto and was welcome news to some extent. Yes?
Yeah, 100%. It's kind of like a sense of relief. It was like, all right, finally. Because, you know, you were promised it. And then it was like, everybody's going back and forth. They're like, when is he going to say something? Is he going to say something? Then he finally said it. Like, I'm waiting for a date. I'm going to announce a date this week. Because every time he says, hey, I'm going to announce a big fight on Instagram in a couple of days, in a couple hours, every text I get is from a family member or a friend. Hey, is it going to be you? Is it going to be you? It's going to be you. And you get like annoyed by it because like, bro, if I know it, you're going to know it. And especially when it's like my brothers or something, I'm like, bro, you would know if I have a fight right now.
And Belal, as far as timing for you, what would be the ideal UFC card to be on?
Honestly, for me, any one of these cards is ideal. Like I'm training nonstop, 100%. And, you know, 300 obviously would be right after Ramadan. But like I fought during Ramadan before, I've trained during Ramadan. And I think that it's only going to make me that much better. It's only going to make my story that much greater, right? Because I've been doubted my whole career. I've been doubted everything I've done. All the people they put as favorites against me, all of this. So it's going to be another obstacle that they think that I can't overcome, and I'm going to do it. And it's going to make me the world champion and make it that much sweeter.
And that said, you know, I guess when people are looking at this fight, you know, should they be looking at it like a continuation of that last fight, or what is going to be different, and how much of an advantage was it for you that you got to spend some time in the cage with Leon?
Honestly, I don't even really look at that last fight as anything. It was literally 4 years ago. I was a whole different fighter, and the only thing you really could tell from each other is the strength, and you could feel him. And you know, I felt a lot stronger than him. You could say, oh, I felt distance, speed, yada, but it's like a lot of stuff changes in 4 years. Mm-hmm. The guys that I fought since then, I've had to go through so many different styles of a striker and Wonder Boy, a grappler and Maya, Gilbert Burns, Luke A, Sean Brady. Like I've had to go all these different styles, and every one of those camps I go through, it makes me a better version of myself. So I think now when he goes in there with me, it's going to be a whole different fighter, a whole different person. So if he's looking at that fight like, oh man, it's going to be a continuation, he's going to be in for a rude awakening.
Belal, remember the name Muhammad with us here on the Anik and Florian podcast. Was there ever a point in time, and again, until you get the contract, maybe I should pause at saying this, but was there ever a point in time over the last 6 weeks or so where you wondered to yourself, are they really going to potentially pass me for someone like Shavkat Rakhmonov? Or have you always been convicted in what Dana said, the guarantee after the Gilbert Burns win, that the promotion would ultimately do right by you?
I mean, I've definitely been on edge 100% until I get a contract. Even now, getting that interview from Dana, people are still messaging me, congrats. I'm like, bro, congratulate me when you see a poster with my name on it, right? Because I've had to go through so many hurdles. But, I've stayed in touch with Dana. I've been texting Dana, hey, how's your morning, Dana? You feeling good?
Yeah.
Just trying to stay on edge just to see if there's any, who are you again? Who is this? Wait, why do you have my number? But there's none of that. So, I'm staying positive with it. I'm putting it to there. And, I for sure think that I'm going to get this title shot, and it's going to be the next fight.
So when we sat down in our fighter meeting with Movsar Evloev before he fought Arnold Allen, a lot of what we talked about was Ramadan, and you guys both competed on that same show right after Ramadan. You fought Gilbert Burns and he fought Diego Lopez on short notice. And he also stepped in on just 2 weeks notice for that fight. And he talked about some of the challenges, but also some of the upside, for lack of a better word, right? In terms of maybe the spiritual advantage that it gives you. But I'm on a private text thread with Joe Rogan and Daniel Cormier, and I think all of us find it hard to believe that April 13th would be better than, say, June 1st, right? Ramadan ends on April 9th during fight week. And I'm not necessarily asking you to fall on one side or the other. But for those who would suggest that they would rather see Belal Muhammad with a fully nourished or at least partially nourished training camp and fight this guy in June, is it fair to say that if you were the champion choosing, that it's less ideal to fight him with an entire training camp spent during Ramadan than it would be to face him in a more normal climate in June?
Yeah, 100%. If I'm the champ, if I'm Leon, I'm like, yo, let's do it in Ramadan. Let's try to get it the week of, or change the date or something like that, right? Of course, I would want that. But like I said, I've gone through so many camps during Ramadan. I've done camps. I'm always training nonstop, no matter what. And the spiritual upside of it changes you in many ways, and it makes you that much stronger. And for myself, me knowing that he's not putting his body through what I'm putting my body through. He's not going through a training practice in the morning and going home and not drinking any water and, sitting there and still having to push yourself that much harder, and then going through another session and you didn't have another meal. You didn't have any protein. You didn't have this. For myself, I know that I'm on a different level mentally and spiritually than all these guys. And that's the difference, because everybody knows how to train. Everybody does strength conditioning. Everybody does wrestling. Everybody does boxing. Everybody does this. Everybody does that. The edge you're going to get when you're at the top, when you're at the top 5, it's these little game of inches stuff. And I think 90% of that is your mental strength.
And the reason the camera's on me is because I looked up at John. I got something to say. Belal's a man of destiny, whatever the terms may be. If it's UFC 300 after Ramadan, good, right? Bully, bring it, right? Bring it, whatever it may be for you. We've had a lot of conversations about this, and it's going to be what it's going to be, whether it's a banged up foot going into Gilbert Burns, whatever it's going to be, it's going to be. So if it's UFC 300, in my conversation with Belal, okay, we'll find the advantage in that. And certainly if it's in July or whatever it is, and new, whatever the date is, we just want
100%. It's for myself, it's like you said, I've gone through everything, right? I've had my highest highs and I've had my lowest lows. And it was always, all right, this is God's plan. This is God's reason for it. This is why this happened. So if it is during Ramadan, what is that going to do? It's going to bring more attention to myself training during Ramadan. It's going to bring more attention to the religion, me explaining to her what it is more. Right. It's going to bring more knowledge to the people in the crowd and to show my faith and my strength at another level. So I'll put a spotlight on that. Why not? Let's go.
Got a few more minutes here with one of the best welterweights in the world, Belal. Remember the name Muhammad. I want to respect your training schedule, which is coming up soon. I did want to ask you a few things about UFC 297 before I get to Dricus Du Plessis and Sean Strickland. some fans have suggested that I have overrated certain fighters over the years, and guilt as charged. I mean, some of that is hyperbolic. Some of that is just me doing my job promotionally. But some of the names, right? Khamzat Chimaev, maybe I've overrated his cardio base, for example. Gabriel Bonfim is another fighter that maybe I anointed and then he loses to Nicholas Dalby. And another fighter that recently fans have come at me on is Mike Malott. And I would suggest softly that maybe I did overrate Mike Malott a little bit. Ray Longo was very critical on our show on Monday, suggesting this dude's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Looked like maybe he quit a little bit towards the end of that fight. Like when Gabriel Bonfim was fighting Nicholas Dalby, one thing that you cannot argue is that he did not quit. I mean, he went for broke. He went out on his shield, right? What would you say about Mike Malott after what we saw at UFC 297? Is he overrated? Is he inexperienced? I know you picked Neil Magny to win the fight, but this was a huge wake-up call, I would think, for the Canadian welterweight Mike Malott.
Like, as you were talking about hyping somebody up, I was thinking about how Jason was hyping up Mike Malott. I was like, hey, you did it too, John. I didn't realize you were doing it too.
Me more so, but yeah.
Yeah, Jason was like, man, he's a nice GSP. This kid is a monster.
No, I said you go for Canada, though, man. They needed him. I thought he hadn't a lot of skills. Anyway.
No, 100%. Yeah, I think he was for sure definitely overhyped by a lot of people because he hadn't gone through that test yet, right? Neil Magny's really that gatekeeper where, all right, if you get past him, then you know you're real. We've seen Magny fold in a lot of these spots with a guy like Shavkat or Gilbert Burns where you just tap him out and he'll just fold in the first round. Mike Malott, I don't know. It seemed weird in there because that low kick was working. It was perfect. Like, just keep going to the low kick. Neil Magny still does not know how to check a low kick. So you could have made it simple on yourself. But then he would just do too much. He was going here to there to there. And I think that he started believing in himself, the own hype. And fighting in Toronto, the crowd over there was going nuts for him. And I don't know if he had an adrenaline dump or something, but he for sure gave up. Like it was at that point, there's 10 seconds left or something. When you're going for a leg lock, it wasn't even near it. I was like, bro, why are you going for a leg lock right now? He just didn't look good at all. And I think that's one of those wake up calls where you're like, do I still want to fight? Am I really this or am I really that? But he showed that he does not belong in the top of the division right now.
Yeah, one thing Dominic Cruz was talking about during the fight was the guys who might be next, whether it's Gilbert Durinho Burns or Shavkat Rakhmonov or somebody like yourself. And clearly he's not ready for that level. And I do wonder how long he is for this game. I know he has said publicly that he is going to be back, but I think this, to your point, really makes you question the mental and whether or not you want to be in the space. And it also makes me think about guys like you with these double-digit winning streaks and just how hard those are to come by. All right, before we let you go, I do want to ask you about Dricus Du Plessis and Sean Strickland. I believe you picked DDP to win and you thought he won the fight. You know, Robert Whitaker came out today and said, among other things, that Du Plessis just wanted it more. I mean, clearly he was the more initiating fighter. He was the more offensive fighter, even if he did not land as many significant strikes. But before we let you go, I just want to get your thoughts on that middleweight fight and the new champion DDP.
Yeah, I for sure gave it to DDP, and rewatching it. When you're watching it in the stands, I was sitting next to Luke Rockhold, and sitting next to his commentary was the funniest. He was like, bro, Sean Strickland sucks. That's all he does is jab. People are like, wait, what is this guy? What's happening? He's like, no, he does this every fight. All he does is jab you. That's literally what he does. Even in you can go back to that Adesanya fight. There was points in the corner where Nicksick is telling him, bro, you're about to lose a boring decision. If that first right hand in the first round didn't land, who knows what would have happened? But there wasn't really much. And when you see the highlights of it, yelling at Adesanya's face, it's like, yo, there was 10 seconds left when he's putting his hands up and yelling.
Right.
Du Plessis wasn't a guy that was going to back down at all. Du Plessis was in his face the whole time, and he was going for the kill with all of his shots. So a guy like Strickland, who plays the man, I'll kill you, let's go to the death and blah blah blah, and there was none of that out of him. It was, all right, let me just jab you. He has a good jab, not gonna lie, he does have a good jab, but Du Plessis was going for it more, and I give it to him for that. There was no point. I think even in the fifth round, Strickland was trying to go for it more, and Ian Gary says, his punches looked very amateur with the crazy huge overhand rights, the weird flying knees and stuff like that. But yeah, I think Du Plessis is a tough match. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't think Du Plessis was that good, but after seeing him go 5 rounds at that pace, he did have a really hard pace. I think that he's definitely going to be a hard guy for any of these guys to beat at 185.
And I do think one thing that probably isn't talked about enough is the fact that where he lives, Pretoria, South Africa, is at high altitude. It's north of 4,000 feet above sea level. So I think that could be something that has helped him that we haven't leaned into. All right, before I let you go, now you probably are expectant when you're sitting octagon side at UFC 297 that at some point you're on the celeb list. They are going to show you on camera. So you maximize the moment brilliantly. Done by you, where you had it on your phone that said, I'm going to bully you, son. But are you in that moment, you're expectant that they're going to show you on camera, and clearly you were ready?
Yeah. Heidi Dean comes up to you beforehand. He said, yo, we're going to come at you after this fight. And I was like, okay. Right. And I was like, I want to do something different because you can always, people do weird poses and stuff like that. But I wanted to put a message on my phone. But I went through like 6 messages on my phone, and I was like sending it to like Lou and the boys, like, yo, which one's better? This one or this one? This one or this one? And, being at doing a podcast with Jason over there's one guy that was just like, had a card of you, and he's like telling Jason to sign it. Just like, bro, it's not me. That's my brother. It's John. So I was literally going to put on there, John has a twin brother, Jason, just for that guy. And it would have just been hilarious. But I was like, I got to come at Leon Edwards.
Yeah, that would have been great, but you had to do what you did, and you went at Leon masterfully. And I do believe the next time we talk to you, brother, it will be to congratulate you, not on a world championship, because we'll talk to you before the title fight, but we're going to congratulate you on the title fight. Hopefully the news breaks this week. Very gracious of you to join us for a quarter of an hour, my man. Train well, stay healthy, and can't wait to see that news wire, Edwards v. Muhammad 2, whenever that may be, brother.
My brother, thank you both. See you tomorrow, Jason.
All right, brother. All right, there he is, Belal. Remember the name, Muhammad, with us here on the Anik and Florian podcast. All right, a lot of different things to get into today, but we were sort of hopeful that by Wednesday morning, maybe the news would have broken. Alas, it has not. More on UFC 297 and some other MMA headlines coming up in a moment, but you may have heard DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL playoffs, is bringing you an offer that'll help make these playoffs electrifying. New customers can bet just $5 on any game and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. As you know, Championship Sunday is now set. The road to Vegas goes through Baltimore and San Francisco. Ravens favored by 3 over the Chiefs. 49ers, 6.5-point favorites over the Detroit Lions. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code AFPOD. New customers can bet just $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code AFPOD. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/football for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. All right, so we will spend a lot of time, Ken Flaw, on UFC 297 over the course of the next 45 minutes or so. We're also scheduled to be joined by Dricus Du Plessis' manager, Danny Rubenstein. It is his birthday today, and we will also be joined by Sean Strickland's chief corner, Eric Nicksick, towards the end of the program. But I want to get into a few headlines, Ken Flo, if I could. So Tom Aspinall is the UFC's interim heavyweight champion, and these are some tweets from him about 18 hours ago. Believe it or not, I respect Jon Jones and everything he has done. So impressive. I wish him all the best in his recovery and return against Stipe Miocic. While we are talking about Stipe Miocic, my manager was contacted by the UFC asking if I'd like to fight him on April 13th. I, of course, accepted. A little later, we were told that Stipe does not want to fight me. He is only interested in fighting Jon Jones. On that note, I will stop crying, accept it ain't going to happen, and enjoy the fight that me and all the other fans want to see. Legend versus legend for the heavyweight title. Maximum respect, guys. Yay. So, Kenny, a lot of that is sort of said with sarcasm and tongue-in-cheek. I really feel for Tom Aspinall in this situation because he's the interim champion, and I think Renan Barão might be the only guy who's ever had an interim championship defense in the UFC. I could be wrong, but we all knew that the waters were going to be muddy when Jon Jones didn't vacate the title. I understand the promotion is not going to strip the consensus greatest of all time, but this problem sort of manifested itself, Kenny. You have an interim champion. You have Jon Jones, who may not fight until fourth quarter 2024. And then you have Stipe, who hasn't fought in years, only wanting to fight Jon Jones. if you're Tom Aspinall, Ken Flo, as the UFC's interim heavyweight champion, like, what the fuck are you supposed to do?
I mean, he's trying to get a fight. He's trying his best. Clearly, he's in that zone where some of the legends, and they are legends, Aspinall, not a legend yet. So we should definitely make that distinction. However, he's trying to fight Stipe. He's trying to fight John Jones. He's trying to make these things happen. And those guys don't think he's worth the risk. They just don't. I mean, they'd much prefer go against another guy who is an established legend and be able to make a lot of money in that process. And I'm not sure Aspinall is clicking all of those boxes. It's tough. And listen, I think that as an organization, you're going to have certain champions hold on to those belts a little bit longer than others, depending on what their names are, right? I mean, it's going to be better business for them. So if it's John Jones and he happens to be out for a little while, then I'm going to have them hold on to his belt a little bit longer. If DDP happens to get injured and isn't able to fight in the next year or more, they're probably stripping him. I mean, let's be honest. But so I think that plays a part. So it is a very tricky situation for Tom right now. And I don't know.
So Stipe Miocic was born August 19th, 1982. He'll be 42 in August. He has not competed since he was 38 years of age. And I understand for John Jones's legacy that this Stipe fight is far more valuable than a Tom Aspinall fight. And I do think that history is not really going to care that Stipe hadn't fought in 4 years and that he was 42 years of age when John Jones fights him, Kenny. But it's not like he's fighting a prime Stipe. And even though Stipe could certainly turn back the clock here, I understand the promotional value of Jones versus Miocic, but I don't know, man. I really feel for Tom Aspinall. I think he's going to defend the interim heavyweight championship against somebody like Jailton Almeida, which seems a little bit silly. And then if you're Tom Aspinall, and Jay, I don't know if you have any comments on this, but then if you're Tom Aspinall, you have to weigh the risk, right? Because if Tommy Aspinall wants to bide his time and fight the winner of John Jones and Stipe, he might sit for 18 months and those guys both might retire after they fight.
Right.
So the only advantage there would be that then Tom Aspinall would be promoted to undisputed champion and his title defense, even against somebody like Mal Eugenio, would be a defense of the undisputed and not interim championship. But I don't know, man. It's like Tom, in my mind, has every right to do what he has done to pursue that fight. And the thing is, the betting line's going to tell you who's the more prime heavyweight right now. Like Tom Aspinall going to be favored to beat Stipe. I don't care what anybody says.
No question about it. Well, from Stipe's standpoint, I certainly UFC 300 with pay-per-view points is certainly a good payday. Not necessarily easy to quantify what the payday would be versus John Jones at a later date, but I don't know if John Jones is even going to necessarily fight again. Like there's so many variables. And if I'm Stipe, I guess it's not about money. If I'm Stipe, I pounce and on that one more big one, because I think that payday on UFC 300 probably would approach whatever you're getting with Jones. But I don't think it's about the money. I think it's about the legacy. I think he thinks he can beat Jones. I'm not sure Stipe likes that matchup against Tommy.
Yeah, and if he loses to Tom, the John Jones fight is gone. He's got, he probably sees this as this is one last chance. Let's go for the king.
John Jones is going to fight again. I don't think that there's any question about that. I mean, health is wealth. He's got to get back and be healthy. I do agree, though, that I don't know what Stipe is not a pay-per-view point accruing champion. So I don't know what the difference in payday is for Stipe fighting Tom Aspinall versus John Jones. But certainly for Stipe to beat John Jones would be absolutely enormous. I wondered aloud why the betting line was so wide. Stipe was like plus 330 against John Jones at some point in time. And most people that I trust in the space are telling me that is properly priced. Stipe is going to be an underdog against both of these guys, but he'll be a bigger underdog against John Jones. I just find it very interesting. And, it seems like Tom Aspinall is now going to lay back in the cut and sort of shut his mouth a little bit. But I just wanted to hit on that a little bit because I really do feel bad for Tom. Let us transition, if we could, Ken Flo, to Kayla Harrison, whose next fight you will not be calling under the PFL banner. She has signed with the UFC, and she will fight Holly Holm at 135 pounds. And if I know Kayla Harrison, I know she's going to make weight, however hard that may be. A lot of the narrative right now, Kenny, is on the weight class and not necessarily Kayla Harrison moving to the UFC. But your thoughts on Kayla moving over to the big show. She will fight Holly Holm at 135 pounds at UFC 300 on April 13th.
It's very exciting. And again, I saw this as probably something that was inevitable. She wants to face the best that are out there. And, especially at 135 pounds, PFL doesn't have a 135 pound division. They don't have the long-standing names in the women's divisions that the UFC has. And she wants to test herself. And I think she's entering a division that is a division where I could see her dominating for a very long time and becoming an even bigger star than she is now. No question about it. The big question mark for me is making 135 pounds and having your full capabilities to do what you typically do, right? Making that 135 pound weight class, or anytime you go down a weight class or two, it's a game changer. It's one thing to make the weight. It's another thing to compete at that weight. So that's the only question mark for me. But again, Kayla, a true professional. I know for her last fight that she had in the PFL, she did go down a little bit in weight, said it was even easier than when she was making 155. She did it as a breeze. So I think she has stepped up her game professionally with her nutritionist and how she's eating and all that stuff. So I think if there's someone who's going to do it for the first time and do it correctly, it's probably Kayla Harrison.
Yeah, she's disciplined, which I think goes without saying. And she's only 33 years of age, Holly Holm 42. So there are definitely advantages in the fight. And a lot of people think it's a very favorable matchup for Kayla Harrison. I have often said that if Amanda Nunes is going to come out of retirement, it's going to have to be the right fight and the right fighter. And Kenny, one name that you and I mentioned was Larissa Pacheco, the only woman to beat Kayla Harrison in mixed martial arts, because Larissa can continue to build upon her legacy. And were she to maybe come to the UFC in a couple of years, I think that would be a fight that would really pique the interest of Amanda Nunes. I think the Kayla Harrison fight would pique the interest of Amanda Nunes if Kayla Harrison can realize some success in this 135 pound division. But I think there are a lot of factors at play. Certainly the writing is on the wall for the UFC women's featherweight division, RIP, right? We have seen women who have not even weighed in the UFC at 135 pounds who are now ranked in the bantamweight division. So rest in peace, I would think, to the UFC women's featherweight division. And I think that's part of the impetus for Kayla Harrison making her UFC debut at bantamweight. She's going to be a bantamweight in the UFC. But this division took a big hit this weekend. And we have some very nice things to say about Raquel Pennington today. I'm so happy she's a world champion, right? But that fight left a lot to be desired. And it also put the spotlight on the bantamweight division, because other than Juliana Pena, that top 15 leaves a lot to be desired. There are a lot of fighters that you wouldn't consider to be top 15 fighters, never mind fringe contenders, and they're ranked fighters right now. So I'm not sure, Kenny, if Kayla Harrison got a significant raise during this UFC negotiation, but you got to think that fight between Raquel Pennington and Maida Bueno Silva certainly helped expedite that Kayla Harrison signing to the UFC. I would think, maybe not.
Very astute observation, as always, my friend. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That division, let's face it, is ripe for the taking, right? Even 185 pounds. And I think this is what makes the hardcore fans so excited. For me, anyway, it does, is the volatility in each division, where we could have 3 or 4 different names as middleweight champions, guys. Like, that's a legitimate possibility over the next course of the year. And you could say that the same thing at 135 pounds in the women's division. It is ripe for the taking, but it is ripe for someone to come in there and take that throne and hold it for a very long time. And enter Kayla Harrison. It's making things very interesting here.
Well, and for me, Kayla, she's a star, right? She is an incredible human being. I've gotten to know her probably not as well as you, Kenny, but for me, I mean, John, you alluded to it. The timing of this just unbelievable from Kayla's standpoint.
Clear your fucking throat. Clear your throat.
Let me clear my times where we wanted Kayla to come sooner, right? And where there might have been some big fights right at the time. And in hindsight, looking back, this timing seems even better for her. And yeah, we're going to have some great things to say about Rocky later. That's fine. But Kayla is a complete star. She's a crazy good athlete. And I just think she's going to move the needle in this division in a way that maybe hasn't been, Nunes is gone. Well, a lot of people think about, she's cage hedgy coming out for 300. Not happening. So for me, I'm so excited to see Kayla on this stage. And I hope her bank account was fatter because of the time.
Dude, she knows how to work a mic as well. She's made a lot of money in the PFL. She is really motivated to be the best of the best. I mean, that is on her mind. No question about it. You could see her spirit was very different after that Larissa Pacheco loss and how she came back. So I'm excited for her, man. That's going to be huge for her and the UFC. They have a star there. No question about it.
So the women's bantamweight champion is Raquel Pennington. Number 1 ranked contender is Juliana Pena. And by the way, Juliana Pena did take issue with me Saturday night. We ran a graphic. It was a timeline that basically suggested that was the first bantamweight title fight. That fight between Pennington and Bueno Silva was the first Kenny UFC women's bantamweight title fight that did not feature Ronda Rousey, Holly Holm, or Miesha Tate. Or excuse me, Ronda Rousey, Miesha Tate, and Amanda Nunes. But that was the point of the graphic. So we sort of glossed over the Juliana Pena win over Amanda Nunes because Nunes was a part of that fight. We were really trying to just outline the fact that 3 women have been omnipresent in the title fights in this division, and Juliana took exception to that. So hopefully, she understood what I was saying in text message, that was not a personal slight in any way, shape, or form. But Pennington's the champ. Pena's the number 1 contender. Bueno Silva, the number 2 ranked contender. Ketlin Vieira 3. Irene Aldana 4, Holly Holm 5, Panny Kianza 6, Gianna Santos 7, Miesha Tate 8, Carol Hosa 9. I mean, Miesha Tate, I love her, but she came out and called this championship fight dynamic, right? I mean, that's a little bit disingenuous, I think. But it goes on. Carol Hosa, Macy Chasson, Norma Dumont, Julia Avila. I mean, Norma Dumont, I don't think has fought at 35 in the UFC. Chelsea Chandler's on there. You know what? I'm just saying,
just
sort of saying there. So, Kenny, for Kayla Harrison, right? Going to be favored to beat someone like Raquel Pennington. And all indications are that it will be Pennington versus Pena. There's heat, there's friction. Juliana Pena lost her title fight due to injury. So I think that's going to be the fight. But Kenny, don't you believe, bro, that if Kayla beats Holly Holm, that her next fight's going to be for the fucking world title, right? I mean,
I would think so. I think that's why they're putting her against Holly Holm. And I also think it's particularly interesting that Holly Holm really was responsible for ending the reign of the last great judo black belt, Ronda Rousey.
Nice.
And kind of you have a part 2, maybe continuation of this, a 2-time gold medalist this time. And of course, things have changed, but I think it's an interesting story. And, her having had the recipe for success against someone like Ronda is something that she can kind of build on. I think she's been working a lot on her grappling the last couple of years, and she's still very passionate and hungry. And I think it's going to be an interesting fight because of it.
Amanda Nunes, as many of you know, was in Toronto. And when she did an interview with Megan O'Leary after the fight, she spoke like a fighter who is going to be coming back to compete. And I have talked on this podcast about the 4 hours I had with Amanda prior to the Irene Aldana fight at the Lioness studio. And she perhaps was trying to deceive me in that moment, but she was not at all talking about retirement. And I do believe she is going to come back and scratch that itch. But one component of this is Nina Nunes, her wife, who does want to come back and compete. And they do have 2 little girls right now, and that is part of the navigation. But I do think it has to be the right fight for Amanda Nunes. And that fight is not going to be Juliana Pena. It's not going to be Raquel Pennington. It's going to be someone like Kayla Harrison or Larissa Pacheco. And we'll see if Kayla can hold serve against Holly Holm at UFC 300 coming up on April 13th. Kenny, one other fight that got announced for UFC 300 on April 13th, I wanted to get your thoughts on. I mean, dude, you got to put Diego Lopez on this fight card. I mean, the dude is guaranteed to entertain. Say what you want about Diego Lopez, right? Maybe you don't like his haircut. I love it. But he's guaranteed to entertain, and he's fighting Sadiq Yusuf, who is a ranked featherweight. So this is another huge fight on a loaded card coming up 13 April. My man, your thoughts?
Yeah, I love it, man. These are 2 guys that are very versatile, that can win the fight in a variety of ways. Both guys love to move forward. Diego Lopez especially so. So yeah, I think that's a good recipe to have a great fight card for sure.
All right, so I want to get back to Dricus Du Plessis and his win over Sean Strickland by split decision. By the way, on the wide shot, you see that Still Knox sweatshirt up there, Ken Flo in studio? You see that shit? You probably do, right? So Dricus gave me that sweatshirt after his third UFC appearance. So we wanted to give him a little bit of love. Very rarely would I actually cover up Larry Bird, but we're doing that.
Why don't you rock that before he comes champ? Will you wait till he champ and then put it up in the studio when you represent your boy when he, you know?
Bandwagon.
Yeah.
Call, what do you mean, my boy? Like, what do you mean? Drake is my boy? They're all my boys. Sean Strickland's my fucking boy.
Yep.
Jesus Christ. Isn't that great? I can just hit a button, take him right out of the fucking shot.
Yeah, but you can't take my mic away.
Cody, by the way, local record is not working today because my hard drive was full. So I'm your director today. All right. So Sean Strickland, Dricus Du Plessis. So we are a news and information podcast. We don't have any agenda. We try to present things here the way we see it. And not unlike when you and I are calling fights, Kenny, we're just calling it like we see it, right? There's no preconceived bias. There's no promotional directive or anything of the sort. But I am growing tired of this MMA space a little bit and just the morass of negativity when there is a close fight. Because even if you and I both thought Dricus Du Plessis won the fight, we try to present that information respectfully. And when I go on to X or I go to our YouTube comments, it seems like a lot of these fans are just in attack mode. And I don't know if these fans are casual fans or not, right? But I appreciate the passion, but I'm getting to a point at 45 years of age where I don't know how much time I have left in this MMA space, because if I go do pro football, like, I'm not necessarily going to be dealing with this lowest common denominator all the time. And I don't know, man, I just feel like there's a lot of malice and disrespect from the fan base, and we can disagree. Like, don't take it from me. Demetrius Johnson and Kenny Florian thought DDP won the fight. I don't know. I've just been very off put with the negativity that has permeated my feed since Saturday night. And I'm just not sure how much longer I have in this space, honestly.
Yeah. Listen, man, I think that I'm sure there's a fair bit of it in football, but it seems to be a very large problem in the MMA space and has for a very long time. I think that people get very upset when their guy or their girl loses, right? And a lot of these people might be people that are putting money on them or whatever, and they get very upset to see a certain thing not go away. And again, if you've been watching MMA for a very long time, that last fight should not be controversial in any way, shape, or form. Like, if that went the way of Strickland, you're like, okay, I see that. Right. Exactly. But it was a close fight. And I think that for me, we've talked about this before. I think DDP was able to weave a narrative through the rounds where it looked like he was doing all the right things as far as aggression, moving forward, landing shots at critical times. Like, he was very savvy in how he was going about the round and how he was trying to win each and every individual round. And Strickland, I think, shut down a little bit when he started getting kicked in the leg instead of him landing those jabs. That threw away his game plan, and DDP was able to, claw his way back into that fight. So certainly some close rounds, but guys that are saying, this was a robbery, or, certain guys were biased towards certain, I mean, you're delusional. You got to watch more MMA and really learn about the sport.
And thousands of fans, and I guess they're casuals. Sean Sheehan and a lot of other fans are suggesting to me to not even engage with these people. But gosh, how many comments have we heard about, to be the champion, you got to beat the champion? And so I would throw it back to you fans who think that Kenny and I are not understanding what you're saying or are dismissive of what you are saying. So are you folks suggesting that for a judge like Sal D'Amato in a close round, say round 3, he should give it to Strickland because he's the champion? Because if that's what you are suggesting, that is absolutely inane. And take it from Sean Sheehan. Excuse me, I said Sean Strickland. Take it from Sean Sheehan. When the fight starts, neither man is the champion. And that's the way you need to judge the fight. But those of you suggesting that there's any bias or you don't like me, well, you probably get your fucking wish come 2026, because honestly, at this point, I've had it. Well, Lucy is up in the nicotine pouch game with Breakers. Pouches packing a little something extra inside. What are Lucy Breakers exactly, though? Well, if you know your pouches, you know the nicotine does not hit immediately, and neither does the flavor. Well, the geniuses at Lucy came up with a brilliant way to fix both problems. They put a mini liquid capsule inside each Breakers pouch. You grab a Breakers pouch, break the capsule, yes, with your teeth. It actually makes a really satisfying pop. Put it in your lip and enjoy the immediate nicotine and flavor release. It is a new kind of pouch technology, and it is only available from Lucy. It is 100% pure nicotine, 6 delicious flavors, including unique ones like apple, ice, or espresso, and also some of the classics like mint or mango. So break up with your dusty gas station pouches and go to lucy.co/AFPod and use promo code AFPod to get 20% off your first order. Lucy offers free shipping and has a 30-day refund policy if you change your mind. That's lucy.co and use code AFPod to get 20% off and always free shipping. And here comes the fine print. Lucy products are only for adults of legal age, and every order is age verified. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. We are now going back out to the guest line, and we are very happy to be joined by the birthday boy, my favorite manager in all of mixed martial arts. I love you, Tim Simpson, as well. Danny Rubenstein, Ruby Sports and Entertainment. Congratulations on another UFC world champion. Happy birthday, my man. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
So I think you came on our show way back in the day. You're one of the guys who has listened to this podcast. I know you don't listen to it regularly anymore. Thanks a lot. But this is a guy who started listening to us all the way back in 2015. But you and I go way back. And so when Petr Yan broke through and gave you your first UFC World Championship, I was just so happy for you. And maybe even more so getting it done with Dricus Du Plessis. So congratulations. I guess I just wanted to start with how you and Dricus aligned, and how soon did you know that you might potentially have a UFC world champion under the Ruby SE banner in Dricus?
So he was brought into Ruby from one of the other managers we work with, Yusuf Nassar. Yusuf used to be the matchmaker for Brave. He left Brave, and we had a relationship over there. So I was like, hey, like, if you're interested in staying in the sport, I had this opening in the Middle East and Europe that we're looking for an agent over there to help bring in some talent. And he, we had the conversations with Dricus and his team and everything. Went well. He signed. And very honestly, like, I think he kind of could see it even before he got in the UFC. He was 2-8 champion at EFC in South Africa. He was 2-8 champion in KSW in Poland. He had a win over Roberto Sodiq, who everybody valued very high. Right. I think, right away, I think we all kind of saw how good he could be. Obviously there's all the commentary of his herky-jerky style, and he's awkward. And I mean, honestly, he's just, he's one of those like super talented guys that just finds ways to win, and it doesn't have to be perfect, But yeah, it was nice to be in the building for that one. I wasn't able to be there for Peter's fight. I was in the hotel in Abu Dhabi. And like, I think Heather Linden came over to the room at like 5 a.m. and watched with me, and she's got some video of me jumping around somewhere.
Well, dude, like, what were your emotions like when Buffer was about to announce who won? How did you see it going, honestly? And what was that feeling like?
So it was funny. I was kind of more watching his dad, because it was his dad, his mom, his girlfriend, and myself sitting there, a front row. And I was watching his dad, and when they read a split decision, they read Strickland first, and his dad was like, "Oh no, come on, no!" And he's like, and I was like, it was funny actually. Chael Sonnen and I were texting back and forth earlier in the fight, and he was like, Dricus won 3-2. But they're going to give it to Strickland. And I was like, fuck no. Personally, I saw it 3-2 pretty clearly. I didn't think there was that much argument in the rounds. I think one, you give the Strickland, he did great getting the jab out there and won. And then I think when Dricus really started to push him backwards in 2, 3, and 4, like, I thought those rounds were all pretty clear.
Yeah.
And very honestly, like, round 5, like, outside of the last minute, what did Strickland do?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And I was, talking to his girlfriend, and I was like, she was super nervous. It was her first time at a fight. And after the first round, it was like, I said, we lost that round. And then after the second, I was like, at 1-1. After the third, I was like, that's 2-1 us. Like, it's pretty clear. And then after the fourth, I was like, 3-1 us. Like, all he's got to do is not get finished, And obviously, like, he went out there and fought in the first 4 minutes. I think Strickland did a good job of coming on late at the end. But I also don't know how you give him round 5 for just a minute of work. I don't know.
Yeah. It's all fair. I will say, though, seeing you in the octagon celebrating with them was just really special. For all of us who know you and know how you've gone about this the right way, and even some of your former clients that are super high profile when they moved on from you, and it wasn't because of you, it was just because of one reason or another, and you let them go and you give them your blessing. I just want to run through, Danny's, some of your high profile clients right now: Piotr Yan, Movsar Evloev, Rafael Fiziev, Arman Sarukyan, Shavkat Rakhmonov, and of course now Dricus Du Plessis. To have done it the right way, the way you have done it, and to now have all this talent in all of these marquee divisions, you essentially have one, or in the case of lightweight, two guys who could contend for a world title. Not that you're stopping and smelling the roses, but have you allowed yourself to sort of appreciate yourself and what you've accomplished? Because I remember some of the lean years and some of the struggles to sort of get to this point, and now, whether you like it or not, you're on top of the world.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, today you'll be going to dinner for my birthday, nothing crazy. Yeah, I mean, celebrate. Honestly, there's no time to celebrate. Like, I'm already back into like doing stuff for Justin Taffa for 298,
right?
And then Peter 299, and obviously we have Arman on 300, and very honestly, trying to hope Dricus is okay. That there can be some talks about maybe him headlining 300. So no, just right back to work.
It's interesting when it comes to Dricus Du Plessis, and I'm not looking for you to break any news here. Obviously, he was on the Anik Florian podcast on Monday. You can check out that exclusive on the DraftKings YouTube channel. But, both feet are banged up. The facial swelling subsided considerably from Saturday to Monday. But can you speak to like what the financial swing? I don't need numbers, but is it a huge swing for him fighting at 300 versus, say, 302 headlining the show on his own?
I mean, the contract's already done, right? Like, we'd have to go back to Hunter and Mick and say, hey, let's have a conversation about him,
right,
if he's going to headline 300. But yeah, I mean, I talked to Hunter after the fights, and he said, if we do decide to go with Dricus for 300, we'll sit down and get it sorted out and make sure he's happy with what we do. The UFC is great about it. Obviously, like, they have their guys that they have their slots that guys fall into for normal contracts. This isn't a normal contract situation. So,
right.
Yeah. I mean, I would imagine that 300, and obviously as a champion now gets pay-per-view points.
Right.
Headlining, I think just the number 300 alone is going to add, 250, 300,000 pay-per-view buys. Just the number. It don't matter who's on the card. So,
right.
Yeah, obviously I think there's a huge incentive for him to be healthy and make a play to try to headline 300. Yeah, I mean, he wants to do it. We've had the talks. He wants to do it. It's just about making sure he's healthy. I think the belt and retaining his championship is more important than fighting on UFC 300.
No, I agree. All right, before we let you go, and you can certainly say no comment, but there are 3 or 4 possible opponents, I would think, for DDP, right? Fourth, I guess, would be Alex Pineda, because the whole notion that he can't make 85 again is totally foolish. He was a little bit strong-armed by the promotion even to move up to 205 pounds. So Pineda can make 85. Israel Adesanya seemingly is on the inside track lane right now. And then, of course, you have Khamzat Chimaev and a potential rematch with Sean Strickland. Any insight from you as to either who you'd prefer or who you think leads the dance right now in terms of having the inside track on that title shot for DDP's first defense?
I mean, preference-wise, I think it's Adesanya. I think there's heat between the two of them. They've already done all the lead-up to build the fight. I think he's who we'd all prefer as a team. Khamzat, I don't really think he's a middleweight. I think he's a welterweight that is lazy and can't make weight at 170 anymore.
Right.
And Alex Pereira, I'd rather see Dricus go up and fight him at 205, and let's see if he can be double champ, right? I mean, there's all this. I don't love the whole double champ movement, but if that's the case, like, I'd rather him go up and get the second belt than him defended at 85. Right. And very honestly, like, he wasn't going to call out Izzy if Izzy wasn't going to be ready. Like I hit up Izzy's manager, was like, hey, is Izzy going to be ready? We're going to call out Izzy if he's going to be ready. But if he's not going to be ready for 300, I don't want Dricus barking up the wrong tree, right? We'll call out Alex Pereira. He's right there in the octagon. So, they told me Izzy would be ready. So that was we talked as a team, and that was the call out he made.
Yeah. Well, I hope it comes together. But you're dripping in class. So is the new champion. If you are a young fighter, can't emphasize enough how good an egg this Danny Rubenstein is. If you want to find him on the social channels at Danny Rube. Congratulations, my man. Got a lot of guys coming down the pike, and I think it's an eventuality that you're going to have a third undisputed UFC world champion, but we appreciate you getting Dricus for us on Monday, and happy birthday. How old are you, bro?
42.
You paused like a woman as if you were not liking the question.
No, yeah. 42. I mean, it is what it is.
You're the youngest guy in the room right now. Congratulations, buddy. We appreciate the time and look forward to seeing you in Anaheim, if not sooner.
Happy birthday, Ruby.
Congrats, bro. There he is, Danny Rube, with us here on the Anik Florian podcast. All right, so there was some news in there, right? Because there were some rumblings that maybe Israel Adesanya wasn't 100%, but wise on Danny, right, to get that information before the call out. So I think that makes a lot of sense for UFC 300. All right, poll question of the week is presented by DraftKings Fantasy Sports. Check out what DraftKings has to offer this season with code AFPOD, because life's more fun when you're in on the action. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Age and eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See DraftKings.com for details. All right, so we asked the question this week, and Jay's going to chase those results for us. What will be the main event at UFC 300? And some fans were critical of the choices. And this is not on Kenny. This is really on me. But I had Dricus Du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya, Du Plessis versus Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev, or other. Now, the reason I did not include Kenny Du Plessis versus Strickland in a rematch was just because at his post-fight media scrum, Dana White suggested that there are legs for a rematch at some point in time. He is expectant that those two men would fight again, but they're not looking at a rematch right now. So when I heard that from Dana, it seemed like that was not going to be the headliner at UFC 300. So I did not include that as an option. I also did not include Dricus Du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev, although I think that fight has legs. So before I get to the results, Kenny, I mean, what are your expectations? I guess given what you heard from Danny Rube, you think it's going to be DDP and Izzy under the lights April 13th?
Yeah, definitely. Very smart on Ruby to do that. I think that's the fight to make. I think it's the biggest fight to make for sure.
Jay, what do the poll results say?
Yeah, that's the leader in the clubhouse. 51% Du Plessis versus Adesanya. Second is actually other at 27%. 14% Pereira versus Ankalaev, and 8% Du Plessis versus Pereira. Moving up.
So part of the reason why I did not include, what was the other fight that people, Leon Edwards versus Belal Muhammad. So I didn't include that fight because I'm just not expectant that is going to be your UFC 300 headliner.
Correct.
Certainly, I think Leon's status is such that they could headline with that fight. But I mean, Belal as well as anyone. It seems like the fans are a little bit lukewarm on that fight as a UFC 300 main event.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Leon is a enormous pay-per-view seller. Danny Rubenstein's point's very well taken that you're going to get 250, 300, whatever, however many extra buys you get just because of the number. But no, I don't. I envision that as a co-main event. Bilal and I have talked about that. I mean, certainly if it's in June, July, that could change some things. But on 300, it's hard for me to imagine Leon Edwards headlining it.
Yeah. All right, I want to go back out to the guest line right now. And now joining us is one of the most genuine, thoughtful, intelligent men in all of mixed martial arts. The head coach at Extreme Couture, Eric Nicksick, is with us. What's up, E? Good morning. How we doing?
What's up, fellas? How are you guys?
What's up, dog? We're doing well, man. So, Chael Sonnen recently referred to me as the hardest working man in MMA, and perhaps he meant like non-fighter and non-coach. Seemingly no one's schedule is as busy as yours. I know forcibly you've had to scale back a little bit when it comes to the overall attention you are giving certain athletes. But how are you navigating that right now with Francis Ngannou and all of your high and low profile MMA fighters as well?
Honestly, just like trusting the people around you, I think is very important. I think for a number of years, I saw how much it ran Robert in the dirt. and trying to, I guess, manage and micromanage every little turn, and where you have accomplished coaches around you that you can trust and you can lean on. And I think, that was part of my growth with Robert, was he began to trust me and lean on me more and allow me to have some of those duties. So I think it's important, like Danny Davis has those duties, like, hey, hold pads for Sean, or, Nate doing that for Chris. And you can still be hands-on and do all those things, but also just trusting the people around you, because each fighter deserves that 100% of attention, whether it's 100% from you or it's broken up in thirds. And I think that's what's important, and why it's important for us to win like Gym of the Year, because all those guys in the room are doing so much damn good work. And that's what I love most about our team.
All right. Well, before I let Kenny get in here on the fight, and you were prepared for this question, but in terms of just the media load and all the people wanting to talk to you, right? It's great to be thoughtful and have all of this MMA knowledge, but it does come with a price, because everybody wants a piece of you, and you have become accessible. Like in 2017, I basically stopped honoring every single media request that came in, because there was a time in my career where I felt like I should be doing all of these things to get myself out there. But part of the reason I hesitate to reach out to a guy like you on Monday is because I know everybody else is fucking reaching out to you. So I don't know if your wife, Annie, is just a saint, but like, I'd imagine at one point she's like, hey, dude, can you not go on like MMAsuckerforlife.com again today? Like, how are you navigating the myriad media requests that continue to come in? And have you said no increasingly as your profile has expanded?
It's two sides to it, man. And like, I'm always just been that type of guy where I'm going to say yes to Ariel, or if it's the upstart podcast guy. And, because I have a big heart, man. I really do. And I feel like, for my mentality, that somebody opened the door for me once, and I just try to allow me to open a door for them. If that means if I do one interview for them, maybe they get Kenny, maybe they get one of you guys, So I have that mentality. And then, Rogan kind of got on me about, he's like, dude, you don't have to do every podcast ever. He said, because remember, people are trying to build a name off of you as well. So right. I try to like, I guess, navigate both. But man, like when the kid in college in his dorm room has his sheet hung up over in the back and he's trying to do an interview, I'll say yes. I'll just have to put a time limit on it and say, hey, you got 15 minutes, bro.
Yeah, that's what I've actually done. Time limits. I never do anything longer than 25 minutes right now, and I think that's a good way to navigate it. But no doubt you got a big heart. Kemflo, what do you have for Eric Nicksick?
Oh, that's amazing. Eric, have you gone back? I assume you have gone back and watched the fight, and what your thoughts were on it, and how you saw it scoring wise.
Honestly, I haven't watched it back yet, Kenny.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I've been busy, like the moment I landed, and then I've also have like that, almost like that, I would say PTSD, but I just have like this anxiousness about like what crumbs we might have left behind, and that's what kills me the most, man, is like those close fights. I talked to John the day after, and those close fights hurt me the most, because that means we left some crumbs behind. We didn't win the optic battle. We didn't do little things that we could have done, I think, to sway the judges. And that falls on me as a coach, man. And that's a tough pill to swallow at times, because it's a title, man. It's a world title, and I know how hard those are to come by.
Well, right after round 3, you said to Sean, you didn't like that round. I didn't like that round, Sean. I didn't like that round. And you could argue that might have been the round that was the deciding factor. Is that the way you saw it there?
There was an edge to him that I usually see that I didn't feel in my fighter. Like he was really like wanted to push a pace and kill this guy, and I didn't have that edge that I felt. I initially thought we won rounds 1 and 2. 2 being close. I didn't know how they were going to score the takedowns, but I got to admit, like, what kind of messed me up was I looked down at the apron, and they show the live odds, like the graphic on. So I looked down and I saw, we were minus 200 after the first round, minus 325 after the second round. I might be wrong, but I remember seeing the odds being in our favor.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, so if there's people in the world that know what they saw, it's people with money on it. You would think. So I'm like, okay, it reiterated my thoughts that we won round 1 and 2. Again, this is MMA. It could change at every moment depending on who's in the seat. But I felt pretty good about 1 and 2. And then, when John wrote me, I haven't watched it back. I remember saying that in round 3. But we started, to me, where after round 1, I thought we fought the round perfectly. Round 2, Kenny, we got away from the one thing that I wanted the most in the fight was our teep. We got away from it.
Right.
And I jumped on him after round 2 because remember, the teep works differently for every opponent. It served a different purpose for Izzy, but for this fight, it was very important for us to, and I kept telling him, flatten the tires. That was knocking the wind out of the body, man. Yeah. Flatten the tires. That was one. Number 2, it kept distance management. It didn't allow him to come running forward with those weird combinations. You stick him right to his belly or stick him right to his chest, and it stops that. We got away from it there. And also, it gives another scoring criteria for the judges to see, right? And if it's just a jab, it's death by 1,000 paper cuts. But now you start adding in the kicks. Well, now the optics look a little bit different. You have a 2-seam fastball, and now you got a cutter, right? Both fastballs, but they're both working well. And that was my thing after round 2. It was like, man, we got to get back to that teep and start chopping the legs a little bit more and flatten the tires. So just little things like that. Those things are going to bug me the most.
Eric Nicksick with us here on the Anik and Florian podcast. Now, promotionally, the stage was already set for Israel Adesanya versus Dricus Du Plessis. Dana White, after the fight, suggested that even though he thinks a rematch between Strickland and Du Plessis has legs, that it won't be of the immediate variety. But bro, this fan base is so fucking wound up right now that I do believe, and I don't know about Izzy's relative health, right? Danny Rube just suggested that maybe Izzy was healthy, but bro, if they announce this rematch as the headliner for UFC 300, I think I speak for the fan base. We're going to be thrilled. Like, I need to see this again. I'm not saying right away, but I'd imagine you're pretty excited at the possibility of being able to sort of right this wrong, so to speak, at some point.
Yeah, I definitely would. I would love that opportunity to compete again. Man, hats off to Dricus and his team. They fought brilliantly. Classy individual. I'm glad they're getting their shine. I truly am. Like if we were going to lose, I'm glad we lost to Dricus and his team, and I'm glad they're getting their shine and along with their country. But as a competitor, yes, absolutely, man. I would love that opportunity to be able to go and compete against again and make some adjustments and go out and try to get that belt back.
I wanted to ask you about Chris Curtis against Marc-Andre Barriault. And sometimes it's hard for us as commentators when the fans start booing, especially when they've been spoiled to an amazing night. And you see this as a mixed martial arts fight and a striking contest that is maybe not the fight of the year, but certainly aesthetically pleasing. What were your thoughts on Curtis's win? Certainly I thought he did enough to win the fight, but his win, the booing, and then maybe after the fact, some of his criticism of the commentators suggesting that he was just sparring in there.
So the fight in itself, and I said this to him all during camp, if they're booing, we are winning.
Right.
If they're booing, we are winning. That's you're going to get that. The countrymen, they're going to get behind them. We want, and I said that going into round 3. I go, take in the boos, bro. Those are our cheers. Like that's what we want. We're winning the fight. I don't see how anyone just scored it a split decision. I thought it was, I thought 29-28 at best or at worst for Chris. So, but man, I don't know all the things that were said. I didn't listen to the commentary, nor does it matter. I said to Chris, when Chris, I don't know, I saw Chris went scorched earth on poor Dom. Right. My bro, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And I even said to Chris, I said, what if Dom said it looked like a sparring match because you made it look easy? Right? There's perspective to be had, and I actually was contemplating on texting you last night and sending you a text to give to Dom saying, hey, bro, listen, I'm sorry, man. I don't want there to be like a beef between even teams or our athletes because you guys have a job to do. And I respect that you guys have a job to do. You're calling it like you see it. Right. So if one of you guys says something about our performance, I don't take it as criticism. I take it as, okay, I trust Kenny's eye. If he sees something that we're doing, dude, take a step back from the sniper scope and look at the entire environment. Maybe there's something we can do better. That's all, man. Like that. Yeah. I don't like to get into none of that bullshit.
Well, and I would say to Chris and any other athlete that takes exception to the commentary, and I'm not an analyst, I'm a play-by-play guy. It's a very important distinction, but none of our analysts bring any malice nor disrespect to the table. Like whatever Dom or DC said about the sparring nature of portions of that fight, it's not really anything that is said with disrespect, but I think sometimes it is ingested as such. So how soon do you head to Saudi Arabia? You go like a couple weeks out if you don't know Francis Ngannou and Anthony Joshua, not all that far from right now.
Yeah, so I'll have Roman Dolidze main event the 3rd. Yep. I'll have Ige Brad February 10th. I'll go Mexico City for Zell Huber. Mexico City straight to Saudi, and I'll be in Saudi for the rest of the time until Francis fights. And you know, had it not been for Zell Huber, I would go right after Ige and Brad. But because Dewey and I both share Zell Huber, and Dewey's already in Saudi right now with Francis. I talked to Dewey for about 30 minutes last night. It's Dewey's show. So if I said to Francis, I go, bro, if you tell me you need me there, I'll have to tell Zell Huber I'm sorry. And he goes, no, stay with Zell Huber. I feel bad that, you know, I got you and Dewey. So do your job, come straight out there when it's done. So it's all working out perfectly for all us. The team's all where it needs to be. All of our sparring partners that we had are basically Eastern European guys. So they're thankful that we were doing it out in Saudi. All the boys are on the ground right now. Francis sparred 9 rounds yesterday, which was great because we would do like four pads. This dude, he's already right back in. So Dewey's excited. He says he's looking amazing. And I can't wait to get out there and see our boy. You know, I haven't seen him since the fight.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
I saw him once. He came home for like a minute, said hi, came and beat up half the team and left.
All right, before I let you go, so I try to predict what I think a betting line will be before I actually look at it. And when I was thinking about Anthony Joshua and Francis Ngannou, I understand stylistically it's a different fight than Tyson Fury, but just given the competitive nature of that Tyson Fury fight and how there for the taking it was in the latter rounds, I thought Francis would be like plus 220, maybe as high as plus 270. Bro, like I guess I'm asking this somewhat rhetorically, but Francis Ngannou right now is plus 470. I kind of want to violate my contract and bet on him. Like, dude, why am I looking at such a big number?
Yeah, and stylistically, you know, I mean, Kenny, what do you think, bro? I feel like AJ's going to be there. It's going to be a fight where we don't have to track this guy down the same way we had to with Tyson, where Tyson's elusiveness and the cage cutoffs and all those things were a lot of our game plan, whereas this guy's going to be more plotty and work behind his jab and be in front of us. So, you know, I feel like we're going to be able to hit this guy a little bit more. So, and I mean, dude, when you get hit by Francis, we all know, man, it's life-changing.
Yeah, not in a good way. Yeah, I mean, that's the way I see it. I think this is a way more dangerous fight for someone who has a style like Anthony Joshua, just because, like you said, he's going to try to be there for Francis. So that means Francis gets to land shots. If Francis is landing shots, watch out.
It's a wrap.
Yeah.
All right. Well, he was the consensus mixed martial arts coach of the year in 2023. Eric Nicksick on Instagram, Eric_XCMMA. Super gracious of you to give us a quarter of an hour, my man. Thank you so much for the time. We wish you all the best. I know I'll see you over the next few weeks, but bro, you're the fucking man. You know, nobody has a bad word to say about you because you're just the real article, and continued success. You know, you're the consummate example, I think, of good things happening to good people, but you've made it all happen yourself. So continue to enjoy the fruits. Best to the family, and we'll see you in a few weeks, brother.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, man.
All right, there he is, Extreme Couture's Eric Nicksick with us here on the Anik and Florian podcast. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I really like Sean Strickland and Dricus Du Plessis. I hope they fight again, but I just think we're going to have to wait a little bit. I have a gift for you, Jay. Do you have a comment? Yeah, well, I just want to say, I mean, I know earlier you're talking about, 2026, you know, I'm out of this game or whatever, and I don't think you should react too much to some of these fans. Like, I think it's cool to be able to talk about this stuff. I can't wait to watch it back. Like round 2, my takeaway, if you want to know the truth, I remember thinking, man,
Du Plessis kind of wild here. Strickland's very poised and sort of crispy, and his jab seems to be getting through. So I'm very anxious to watch it back, but I think it's more, and taking this stuff personally about people saying, oh, the champion should, I don't even worry about that stuff. It just kind of is what it is. I guess
Jason,
I'm not.
I was going to tell Jason that he doesn't know that I made John sign a contract. It's a 30-year contract with the podcast. He can't leave the podcast. He can leave somewhere else. He can't leave the podcast. It's like the mafia. Yeah.
No, I mean, it's important feedback from you, Jay, and I'm not trying to take it personally, but I try to be accessible and engage with fans, especially on X. And some of my broadcast partners, Joe Rogan, chief among them, their profile is so high and they are so famous that they can't possibly engage with the fans on a regular basis. Even somebody like Daniel Cormier, right? So you got to post and ghost a little bit, right? But for me, I try to be that accessible conduit for the fans. And what I'm finding is that 90% of what I am sifting through is negative, and a lot of those comments are said in an antagonistic, attacking type of way. And so I got 3 kids and just better things to do with my time.
No doubt.
But again, I'm trying to be, especially after a fight like this, I want to be able to engage. But when I see the venom that some people are coming at us with, it just makes me disengage. So I guess maybe my thesis statement should be, if you see me disengage and not be as omnipresent and as accessible on X, it's because the fan base is starting to turn me off. And Mark Raimondi had a very thoughtful post about this on Instagram. This sport is getting worse by the minute in terms of all the negativity in the air.
It's a sign of the times, right? It's a sign of the collective of kind of how people are in general. Like this country is more separated than ever, all this stuff. But yeah, it's unfortunate, man. I gotta say, not to change the subject here too much, but I gotta say, Eric Nicksick, man, I'm never not impressed by him. Anytime we get a chance to talk to him, he's a coach that is really thinking about what he's doing, how he's doing it, open to criticism, open to feedback, always trying to get better. Man, it's impressive.
He's an amazing human. We went to the Raptors Bulls game Thursday night. I was surprised to be able to spend that time with him the night, as he had to leave at halftime because Strickland was cutting weight. But, he said, he's like, I have a big heart, and you can be sure that, that's the definition of him, but he also got a big head, man. He is sharp. Yeah. And I think he balances these personalities so well.
Yeah,
I was really upset by Chris Curtis's comments too on MMAfighting.com to Ariel Helwani about Dominic Cruz, just going at him like totally in attack mode. Our best analysts, right, are the ones that are critical, that are highly analytical, that are not there to make friends. And I would argue, Kenny, of all of my broadcast partners and colleagues that I work with, Anthony Lionheart-Smith might be the most critical. And when it comes time that he's going to be calling fights, like I can assure you, he's not there to make friends. Like Dean Thomas has upset a lot of people, right? Dominic Cruz spars more than any of my broadcast partners by far. But to see Chris get so upset and start to attack Dom, Chris Curtis lost me.
Well, but do you think, Dom, I say all the time, I've never met anyone in my life who gives less fucks than Dom. So you could be sure Dom ain't too fazed by it. But John, I think you got to sort of keep that stuff in a compartment,
Listen, I think that it's tough, right? When you're a fighter, there's a certain level of, ego that you bring in there, and you have to balance it. You have to be open to feedback, but at the same time, it is our ego that drives us to train harder and fight harder and all those things at times. And, fighters take it differently, man. And listen, Dom has been very outspoken against other people as well. And, I'm sure he expects to get venom thrown back at him and all that stuff. Yeah. But there's no question that when Dom is seeing something and saying something, it's because he truly believes that. He doesn't have anything against you, really. He's just calling it like he sees it. And, for a lot of fighters that perhaps aren't even at that level or the experience level of Dominic Cruz, they may not see it. But if you investigate it and you take that feedback, openly, you might be able to get better because of it. Dom is one of the best minds in mixed martial arts, period.
And, I feel like I've lost a handful of friends just because of the nature of my MMA preparation. I'm a Boy Scout on the road. I'm in my room all the time. And as such, I am very sensitive, or at least tuned in to fighter criticism, because
all we are trying to do largely is do right by these athletes, but also talk about what we see. So when Tom Aspinall beat Sergey Pavlovich, and Tom ain't following me on any social channels, when he takes the time to write me a message that says, hey, I just want to thank you for all the hard work and shining a positive light on the fighters all week. It meant a lot to me and my team. That's really all I'm looking for, you know? And I think this is sort of the other end of the spectrum. And I will have a conversation with the King of Combat, Chris Curtis, who is one of my favorite fighters. But I just was surprised that he was so animated and so upset with Dom after what I thought was a fairly innocuous comment. But I think some of it had to do with just the way the fans ingested and responded to that fight. Go ahead, John.
But also, too, so Chris Curtis might just have a lot of John Anik in him, where you get a hot mic in front of him and he likes running his mouth a little bit.
Yeah. So real quick before we get on out of here, I just have a gift to present to Jay, in part because you've just done a lot of work on behalf of Anik Florian LLC. But when Jay calls my cell phone, the song that plays is You're As Cold As Ice or whatever the fuck, right? Because he historically, when we share an account, like you have not been good, right? But
in terms of sports gambling,
he has not been good, right? So cold as ice, right? But he's coming off an NFL season in which he just absolutely crushed the board. So this gift isn't as topical, but I bought it on Barstool Sports. I got you your own Mr. Ice sweatshirt.
Nice, dude.
I thought it was going to be a bag of cash. What's up with that? But that's all right.
Yeah.
Why don't we have Ice Baby playing right now?
We should.
Yeah, right? No hedge. No hedge on the sleeve. I like it.
Yeah, it says no hedge on the sleeve. You can buy it at Barstool Sports.
I got to hit up Barstool Sports. That'd be a good fit for me over there, huh?
That'd be a great fit for you. But Mr. Ice, I know some people say you're the Jaguar, whatever the fuck, but Mr. Ice, there's your sweatshirt. Shrink it and enjoy it.
Cut the sleeves off, kid. Cut the sleeves off. Like Belichick, kid.
All right. Thank you to our guests today, Eric Nicksick, Danny Rubenstein. Did we have any other guests today, guys?
Oh, you forget my boy. How do you forget my boy? It was a long time ago. Mother fudger.
Thanks to Belal, remember the name Muhammad. Hopefully he gets the announcement on his title fight in the not too distant future. Thanks to Belal, to Nicksick, to Danny Rube. Don't forget, johnanik.com is now live. All of our new designs, the One More Sleep merchandise should drop in the next several days here. We have a special design in advance of UFC 299 for Miami, but we have a new flagship One More Sleep shirt that's going to hit johnanik.com in the not too distant future. Also, don't forget, remember the show with Jason and Belal coming up on Thursday on the Anik and Florian Podcast YouTube channel. KennyFlorianMartialArts.com, Argus Integrated Defense. What's A&R Tactics, right? Like, you know, I go down this rabbit hole, Argus Integrated Defense, one of my favorite follows on Instagram, and now we have A&R Tactics, Kenny. Like, what is this?
It's kind of like a sister company, if you will.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Don't worry. It's not like A&F. You're all right.
Yeah,
all right.
Exactly.
All right. Thanks to our executive producer, Cody, the maestro, Bone Marrow, putting it all together. Hope you guys enjoyed the content this week. If you did miss our exclusive with Dricus Du Plessis, you can watch that right now on the DraftKings YouTube channel. And we're Cannonball coming right back at you this coming Monday. We will preview the next UFC Fight Night. Roman Dolidze and Nassourdine Imavov coming up February 3rd from the UFC Apex. Also, don't forget, we will have our next watch party the following weekend on the eve of the Super Bowl on February 10th. With that, for Kenflo, for Jason Anik, I'm John Anik. Thank you all for watching, for listening. Tell your friends, tell your mom. We'll talk to you next Monday. Until then, you'll fucking me.
To the bread, he's cornbread. Cornbread! He's cornbread. Cornbread! Life is so precious, do the best that you can. Keep your hands on the bar, here's the open man.